Okay. Good evening, everybody. First of all, two thank yous. Number one, thank you to Aaron and Gemma hosting. It's great. Thank you to. Okay, that's very underwhelming as far as I'm concerned. It's like, thank you for hosting. And one guy in the back is like, yay. Yeah, there's always one guy like that. Everyone's like, not yay, quiet. Yeah. And then there's the other people that we want to thank is obviously I'm thanking Mikey and Rivka with all the different things that they arranged. We're doing one of these, right? Yeah. Okay, bro. Okay, and today's shir is being given for Zechus for Refuah Shalema for Yehuda Zev ben
Bracha Alexander Gila.
Yehuda Zev ben Bracha Alexander Gila. We wish him Refuah Shalema, and Mitzvah Shem we should hear only good news from him.
Amen.
Okay, right. One of the things that's become very, it sounds weird to say this, in vogue, but basically it's become a big deal that people have started making a big deal, and it sometimes you can see what television can do, the power that TV has. It's almost like the power of books. I remember when we were in America, when I lived in America, and you learn American history, so they taught you about different books. There were different books in history, like Uncle Tom's Cabin was a huge book that did a tremendous amount for the Revolutionary War in like 1850 or something like that. You know, when they had that war and they finally gave the blacks rights, etc., etc. That all happened because of that book. So recently, or maybe not that recently, maybe I'm a little bit out of touch already of how recent this is, but how many of you guys watch BBC Blue Planet 2? Yeah? I didn't? People are like, what? Blue Planet 2? BBC? Am I in the wrong place? You guys so frum? Is that like it's only the rabbi that watched it? What's going on here? I watched it, yeah? It was good, right? Was the first time? I don't know. I remember we bought some of them. We bought them. I didn't watch it on television. I don't have a TV license, and I can't really watch it on the iPlayer and Couch Up TV because that's illegal as well. If you don't have a TV license, you can always say you have a TV license, but and then blame it on Rick or something. But the truth is, well, Rick has a TV license, no, and he lives in the building, and I'm watching it in shul, so you could say so, hypothetically speaking. But I didn't really want to do that, so. You go online, you go to YouTube, and you type in Blue Planet 2, and you can spend £2 and you buy yourself, for £10 you can buy the whole series, and for £2 you can buy an episode, and we watched the episode. It was great. Really, really. We only watched the first episode. It was amazing. But one of the things, so like the final episode made a very big deal about the pollution of the oceans. And I remember people speaking about what's known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Anybody have you heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Yeah, so somewhere between Hawaii and California, there's an area, because all the currents sort of come together, that is just like full of plastic. And that area, they say it's about 3 times the size of France. 3 times the size of France. They've had boats trawling through there, picking up different debris. They think there must be about 1-point-something trillion bits of plastic in that area of the ocean. Now the problem is, A, plastic is not biodegradable, or if it does degrade, it's going to take thousands of years for it to degrade. And B, whilst it's subjected to the sun and to the elements, the ocean, etc., it's going to slowly but surely turn into smaller pieces. When it turns into smaller pieces, then the bits and pieces of plastic get stuck inside the lungs of the fish. They can't breathe. They might breathe it in because they breathe in the water and they have the gills. They're able to expel the water, take in the oxygen what they need to breathe and expel the water. But when they breathe in and get this plastic inside them, they can't get rid of it afterwards. And so it's killing the marine life. It's killing the whole area over there. And David Attenborough made a very, very, he gave a very stark warning about how we are actually ruining our planet, how we're ruining our oceans, and we need to do something sooner than later to save it. Because you can't turn around afterwards and say, oh, whoops, I thought the ocean was a lot more resilient than it is. Yeah, you can't beat something up and then go, oh, you have it with little kids. I always tell my kids, don't play like that. You're going to start crying. No, it's fine, Daddy. We enjoy it. I don't know if you have it with your kids? Yeah? We enjoy it. And you're like, you're being too wild. We enjoy it. You're being too wild. We enjoy it. Ah! It always ends in tears. Always. And you come down, you're like, what did I say? He jumped on me. I'm like, yeah, I told you it wasn't a good idea to jump from the top bunk onto somebody's shoulder and think they can stand up, you know? My kids have never tried that, but that's just not a good idea. Yeah? You want to try that? It's awesome. Pardon, something else would do? Yeah, but Caleb's not big enough for that one yet. I think he's got to leave Caleb alone for a little bit longer. Yeah? But yeah, that's something Big Brother's like, I got a good idea. I'm like, no, this is not a good idea. Yeah. So you were the youngest but the biggest, right?
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest?
Smallest, actually.
You were the smallest.
Yeah.
You were the smallest of all your brothers. Find that hard to believe.
Eventually
the biggest, right? Slightly, just yeah. But you get this. But you can't keep on beating. You can't keep on beating up on the oceans and then expect the oceans to keep on bouncing back all the time. So that he gave a warning. He says, we either do something now about our oceans or we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Okay? That was what we had. Then you have different other issues. Like, for example, New Zealand. I don't know if this is because of our gases that we put out, et cetera, but there's a real issue with the ozone layer above New Zealand. And so that I have somebody that I know who had a good friend who was a Rav in New Zealand and said, like, the rule is in New Zealand, nobody goes to the beach and lies in the sun. It's just like so dangerous because there's no ozone layer and because the sunlight and the UVB rays come through so strongly, you can't lie on the beach. People getting cancer left, right, and center from lying on the beach. You just burn immediately. Okay, so you got to contend with that. Think about this statistic. Britain uses 13 billion water bottles a year. 13 billion little water bottles. It's a lot of water bottles. Recently I've gotten into these water bottles and they're great. I'm starting to see that they're not as great as you think they are because you go into little and it's £1.50 for 12 and you have them sitting in your office and whenever you come into the office you pull another bottle and you take it and you drink it and you chuck it and you take it and you drink it and you chuck it. But if you have people all around the UK doing this, we're not such a huge country. There's only 65 million people that live here comparatively to some of the much larger countries. And even we are going through 13 billion water bottles a year, of which only 3 billion are recycled. And I leave you to do the math. What happens with the other 10 billion water bottles? That's just our country. As forgetting about America, I think America probably has a much, much bigger percentage of people. Well, obviously they're a bigger country. I'm sure they're into their water bottles and then this and then that. It's madness to think 10 billion water bottles are being chucked into landfill in this country every year. So you can do one of a few things. Either you burn them and you create all sorts of dangerous gases, or they end up in landfill and somehow they make their way into our oceans and they end up wherever it is. So that's something to think about. The Amazon rainforests and how we're starting to decimate the rainforests. I think somebody said when Harry Potter 7 came out, it took they got rid of an entire forest just to be able to print the book. There were so many books being sold on the first day, even for the first print. They were just printing and printing and printing. They had to get rid of an entire forest just to be able to print Harry Potter. Think about that. It should really put something, you think about oh, what's with our country? Or what's with the world? Harry Potter is more important than an entire forest. So, what's the Jewish view? What do we have to say about environmentalism? Are we pro? Are we anti? And I think one of the problems is that people like to compare, what they always like to do, is compare Jews and Judaism. And so we look at Jews and we say, Jews, I guess especially religious Jews, are not very good at recycling. I think they're getting better at it, especially what we call the big gezerah, the big decree, the edict that has come to Prestwich. bins only taken once every 3 weeks. So in our house, we've learned to recycle a lot better. Some people just drive to the tip once a week. There's two ways of doing things. You go to the tip once a week, once every week and a half, because you have a big family and you only have that much bin space. And others say, okay, you learn how to recycle. So you have all the, especially the food rubbish. You make these bags of the food rubbish, the stuff. I mean, except the only time it's really, really bad when it's really hot, that thing smells awful. It's just the worst smelling bin of all the bins. And even when it's just been emptied, there's like garbage juice that accumulates on the bottom. And every time you open it, they're like, quick, close it. Thing stinks. Do you know the ones I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good, Adam. See, Adam, you take care of the bins by you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah? Good. So you have to learn, you're going to have to learn how to get better at it. So you got your paper and you got there's that many bins. My parents, when they come, they're like, how many bins do you have? We got two green bins for paper and we got two gray bins that are black. I'm not sure who the colorblind fellow is that calls these bins gray, but they're gray bins. And then we have a blue bin for all the plastics and the aluminum, and you have a brown bin for all the food leftovers. So we're trying to recycle. We really are. But do we really have to care? Should we care? Should we make a deal of this? Should we just ignore it? So how do we look at this? So the first thing is, there's a medrash. There's a very important medrash. And when I went looking around at different sources, this is the medrash that comes up everywhere. And the medrash says the following: after God created the world and he created the Garden of Eden, he took Adam. He created Adam in the Garden of Eden, and he says, okay, come with me. And he took him on a guided tour, so to speak. Have a look around. This is that, check out this one. This is really interesting, etc., etc. And he goes around the entire Garden of Eden. And after the entire thing that he does, he says the following. This is what God says. Be careful, tendatcha, that you should not destroy my world. Because if you screw it up, that's not what it says in the Medrash, but if you mess it up, you read it in the Medrash, it doesn't say exactly those words. But if you mess it up, there's going to be nobody here to fix it for you. God said, I'm not putting in this like fix it thing. Like, you sometimes your kids play with toys and they break it, and sometimes they break it so bad they come to you and you put it back together, and don't do that. And you give it back to them, and then they break it again and they come to you and you have to fix it again. God says, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not picking up after you. You got one world. You got one chance. Make sure you don't destroy my world. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to keep in mind. That God has already said, and this is in the Midrash. This is from 2,000 years ago, by the way. So that if anybody says this has somehow snuck its way in modern writings, this is before we understood about pollution and before we understood about destroying our world. We see that the Mishnah, it was written at the same time in the Mishnah, almost 2,000 years ago. It says, God already told people, be careful not to destroy my world. Okay? That's the first source that I would bring. The next one is also an interesting source. We're going to go to the one deeper source, and we'll try to bring it all together. Not this one. There's a few more sources. There's the Gemara in Megillah brings a famous story. It's a story of a man by the name of Choni HaMe'agel. Choni HaMe'agel, Me'agel means the one who made the circle. So there's a man by the name of Choni, and he was a big tzaddik, and there was no rain, and he made a circle around himself. That's why he's known as Choni HaMe'agel, the one who made the circle. And he stood in the circle and said, God, if it doesn't rain, I'm not leaving the circle. Now, as strange as it sounds, it's like, our kids saying, if you don't give me this, I'm not going to school. You take your kids, and you pick them up, and you put them in the car. Oh, I want to go to school. Like, you're just quiet. You don't really. It's interesting that that God lets himself be manipulated like that. God doesn't really have to care about when a guy makes the circle around himself. I'm not going to leave the circle. So don't see if I care. No, but I'm not leaving the circle. Okay, yeah. I'm not really going to. God's not really crying about that. But God says, okay, he's not going to leave the circle. It has to rain, so it starts raining. No, I need more rain. Then it starts raining really hard. No, it needs to be the right kind of rain. And finally, the right kind of rain comes, and that's the story that tells of Choni HaMe'agel. And Choni HaMe'agel is walking down the street. This is sort of like, this is a very interesting, almost midrashic story. He's walking down the street and he sees a fellow planting a tree, and he says to this man, why are you planting this tree? You're never going to be able to have any benefit from this tree because the tree takes so long to grow and you're an older fellow. I mean, the Gemara there says it takes 70 years for a tree like that to grow. You're way too old to have any benefit from this tree. He said, look, there are people before that planted trees so that I can benefit from them. And I am planting these trees so that my children can benefit from them. That's the way the Gemara goes over there. Then the rest of the story is irrelevant. There's a very interesting ending to that story. But the rest of that story is irrelevant. But the point that the Gemara makes, and Chani really takes us on board, the idea that we need to bequeath a certain kind of earth to our children. In the same way people talk about what kind of Britain are we giving our children? It's coming out of the EU. Are we giving them less chances? Are we giving them more chances? Are we going to get a deal? You have this whole political discussion about the Britain that we're going to be handing over to our kids. This same question can be asked about the world and about the Britain. What kind of world are you handing over to your kids? Are you going to hand them over a world that's going to have zero resources, so much pollution that people won't be able to breathe, and that you're going to be what are we giving them? Or are we going to take the steps now to ensure that the world that we hand over to our children is going to be a world that's going to be a lot better, a lot healthier, a lot more put together? And it all depends on us maybe making steps now to ensure that when our kids take over the world, they're not going to get a world that's totally destroyed by us who've already wrecked it by using all its resources and just chucking it all away wherever we want to. Beyond that, there is also the Jewish idea of what's known as Bal Tashchis, being wasteful. Okay? Now, we just spoke about the brown bins before. So the idea of Bal Tashchis really comes up in the Torah when it comes to besieging a city. You're not allowed to cut down a fruit tree because this is a tree that gives fruit, and this tree is not your enemy, so why are you taking it out on the fruit? And instead, you should take a tree that's not a fruit tree, because by taking down a fruit tree, you are ruining God's wonderful creations just to have this war. So that's what the Torah forbidden. That's how it brings in the Torah. However, there's a lot more complicated halachas that come with Bal Tashchis, and one of the things that we put together with Bal Tashchis is being wasteful, which means just taking something and then just leaving it. The amount of food waste in the first world countries, if we didn't waste as much food, we could probably feed most of the third world. Now, you can't imagine how much food waste every single household has. Anybody ever taken out those brown bins? Yeah, they might only be like a quarter full, but they're really, really heavy. There's a lot of stuff in there. Whereas, the brown bin, or not the brown bin, sorry, the gray bin or the black bin, whatever you want to call it, that has all sorts of plastic. It weighs next to nothing. It's a lot of air. Whereas here you have food. You have tens and tens of kilos of food that you're throwing out on a weekly or on a fortnightly basis that are just going to be thrown into some kind of, at least nowadays, I'm really happy with that. In our home, we're very, very particular about that bin, because we say, this is so easy. You take it, you put it in this green bag, they'll put it somewhere, they can turn it into compost, and they can use it to fertilize the ground. How great is that? At least something. But the truth is, our kids, looking around here, nobody with big enough kids except for Adam. Do you ever come down and watch your kids? Do you ever see what it looks like after breakfast when kids take cereal? 5 half bowls of cereal every single day. It can drive you crazy. You think like every day, everybody goes like, oh wow, Cheerios. The biggest bowl. Fill it all the way to the top. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to take the milk and make the milk go all the way to the top so that the Cheerios are there, they're like a mound above it. You just surface tension, making sure it doesn't go everywhere. And then they start eating and eating. And about halfway through, they're like, okay, I've had enough. And like, you had enough, yeah. But you took like 3 bowls worth. I know, I'm full. I don't want to take it. I'm throwing it in the bin. Yeah, it happens sometimes. What do you mean it happens sometimes? This is the 4th time this week, and there's only 3 days been so far this week. And they come home and they'll take cereal also when they're hungry. It's just waste and waste and waste. The amount of food that we waste. I mean, if you think about it, the wonky veg. Do you remember the wonky veg story? Supermarkets were literally destroying tons and tons, literally metric tons of produce because they didn't grow perfectly. So it was like, there are no plastic surgeons for vegetables, for peppers or something. So sorry, you got to go. It's almost like a Holocaust of peppers. Anybody who wasn't perfect needed to be exterminated. Terrible. But you think to yourself, so now they started selling the wonky veg, but you think to yourself, in reality, could we not have taken all that wonky veg and sent it off to a third world country? There are places in the world they would be desperate. They'd say, look at this pepper. Wow, a pepper. He goes, what are you talking about? Wow, a pepper. Look how it's banged on the side. He goes, who cares? When do I ever get to eat a pepper? No, but it's not nice and straight. It doesn't look like a bell. What? And for that, you're going to chuck it in the bin? But not like one, Sometimes, okay, you're making a Sheva Brachas and you found the strawberry that's all mushy. Okay, you can't put that one on the table. I get it. So one strawberry had to be sacrificed for your Sheva Brachas. But this is like, we're talking about big retailers throwing away so much when there are people out there that are starving. They have nothing to eat. And you could give it to them and be so happy to have it. So that's about Tashkis. In our homes, commercially, it's wrong to be chucking out all this food. Anybody here have grandparents who are survivors? Holocaust survivors? Yeah? How pedantic are they about food waste? In like the most extreme way, every little bit. I used to hate it because what I don't understand is I understand we don't want to waste food, but why did you put so much on my plate then? They're such a booby. They fill your plate like, I can't eat this. No, don't worry, you'll have it. And then you don't finish. You go, you didn't finish it. I told you before I started I couldn't eat so much. Why did you fill the plate? But they who went through the Holocaust, when they saw food wasted, pardon the pun, but it ate them up. It really got to them. They couldn't handle it. It was torture. It says, do you know what people in the camps would have done for a little bit of food? And here you're just taking all this food and throwing it straight in the bin? My mother-in-law, 2nd generation, she can't bear it. But she got it from her parents. But by the 1st generation people, very much. We'll finish that. Don't worry. Shawarma has never gone in the bin yet. I've never been to a place where we're like, wow, look at all that shawarma. We're just going to have to throw it out. It just doesn't happen. But that's Bal Tashchis. If you think about Bal Tashchis, how much we waste when we could really be giving so much to so many people. Again, you're wasting all these resources. Another very Jewish idea. And lastly, I'm going to read to you a quote. I'm sorry, I have it on my phone. So I'm going to have to read the quote. This is a quote by Rabbi Hirsch. Rav Shamshon Hirsch wrote this in his Sefer Chorev. This is in the mid-1800s, again, before anybody got into the whole thing. In truth, there's no one nearer to idolatry than one who can disregard the fact that all things are the creatures and property of God, and who then presumes to have the right, because he has the might, to destroy them according to his presumptuous act of will. If you should regard the beings beneath you as objects without rights, not perceiving God who created them, and therefore desire that they feel the might of your presumptuous mood, instead of using them only as the means of wise human activity, then God's call proclaims to you, do not destroy anything. Be a mensch. Only if you use the things around you for wise human purposes, sanctified by the word of my teaching, only then are you a mensch and have the right over them which I have given you as a human. However, if you destroy, if you ruin, at that moment you are not a human and have no right to the things around you. I lent them to you for wise use only. Never forget that I lent them to you. As soon as you use them unwisely, be it the greatest or the smallest, you commit treachery against my world. You commit murder and robbery against my property. You sin against me. In truth, there's no one near to idolatry than one who can... Is that the same quote again? There's no one near to idolatry than one who can disregard the fact that all things creatures are property of God, and who then presumes to have the right because he has the might. Yes, okay, that's the same thing. Yes, that one is already serving the most powerful idols. Anger, pride, and above all, ego, which in its passion regards itself as the master of things. Rav Hirsch in the 1850s. Again, before any of this came up, Rav Hirsch says, you don't have a right to just take things and use them any way you want to. God has given them to you in a specific way. And just because you say we have the might and therefore we can produce and we can do and you can do all those things. But you might not have the right to do them. Just because you have the might doesn't really make it right. And so how do we put this all together? I think one of the things, and amongst, and I'm looking now at the youth, so it's a lot easier for the youth maybe to follow through on this. The truth is, like I have this written down over here further back, but anybody go into Mashers before Pesach? Yeah. I mean, Mashers is the one shop that drives me absolutely bonkers. Because people walk in there and you spend like 50, 100, 150 pounds for stuff that's going straight in the bin. Literally. It's going to say, every time my wife goes, I know already she will not walk out of that shop having spent less than 50 pounds. And more or less, most of it is going straight in the bin. You use it once, you use it twice, and then it goes straight in the bin.
I think my mother-in-law is actually the only person I know that washes the stuff she buys from Mashers.
So once or twice we wash. Some of the good quality stuff you can wash. Some of the stuff is not washable, but a lot of the stuff they make is really, really good. But I know before Pesach, and somebody once said to I remember somebody who's irreligious once came to somebody religious, friends of ours, and said, can you explain to me why are all these religious people going and buying all this plasticware? Why? They said, look, imagine if you had a family of 7, 8 kids, and then one of your kids or 2 of your kids are married and they're staying over with their children. So you have 15 people every meal, 3 times a day. Plus, how it goes for Pesach. You never have anything that's really filling. So you eat and you snack and you snack and you eat and you eat and you snack and you snack and you eat, and then you go to sleep and you start again. Because everything is just like a flavored omelet. And it's like chocolate with 15 eggs, that's your cake. You guys made a Pesach cake. That's literally what they are. That's why you can't swallow them either. Put them in your mouth, you're trying to get them down. That's Pesach cake. You love this stuff. But it's good we only have it 7 days a year. I couldn't hack it for much longer than that. But you have all this stuff. Imagine your kids are constantly taking plates and taking and taking and taking. You would need a full-time au pair to wash dishes in your house if you wanted to use real dishes over Pesach. So I know a lot of people that say, okay, for 7 days a year, this becomes impossible. Because everyone's home and everyone's eating and they're constantly eating. Fine, okay. What about the rest of the year? And then people start giving you the excuse. And this is really where it starts. This is where the changes need to be made. Is that people, especially Jews, we're very all or nothing kind of people. Right? Either I recycle or I don't recycle. But I'm not going to be a hypocrite and recycle some things. People love this word hypocrite. I'm being a hypocrite. You tell your wife, from now on, we're recycling all our bottles. Oh, stop it. We don't recycle anything else. Why are we recycling bottles? True. But every bottle makes a difference. Because if people start to recycle their bottles, you'd see that 10 billion bottles that don't get recycled could turn into 9. 1 billion bottles would make a huge difference to our oceans. See, but what difference does it make one bottle? One bottle and another bottle makes a difference. And if you said to yourself, I won't buy as much plastic, okay? There's certain things you can do. Start reusing, buy those reusable bags. Or, you get those really good ones in Lidl and Aldi. They have those really, the tough ones. Not like not the plastic ones. The ones that are, I don't know what
The
they're- pardon?
fabric
The
ones.
fabric ones, yeah. They're brilliant. We have a whole bunch of them at home. And you go shopping with them, you can load them up with like 10, 15 kilos. They don't rip on you. You can really load them up heavy. They're great. Pardon?
Sporting one there. if you want.
Yeah, exactly. One of those.
Yeah.
Exactly what we're talking about. They're good, right?
Hold it up.
Huh? Hold them up. Exhibit A. No, just wash my hands. Wash my hands. Well done. He's done some
Full of
recycling.
things.
Oh.
No, those Sainsbury's will actually replace if it works. Those are the better bags, and they'll replace them if they ever wear out. But those are really great. You don't really. Do you know what? If the government went and put on a tariff of £1 per bag, I guarantee you people would start reusing the bags. If it was because it's 5p, I've spoken to people and they're like, look, even 10p won't make a difference. At 5p, what's it going to be? 5 bags I went shopping at 5p, another 25p added to my cost of my weekly shopping. Big deal. If suddenly it became £5 for all the plastic bags, you wait and see how people start coming in with their own bags. Because at £1 a bag, I'm not willing to spring for £1 a bag. At a penny, 5 pennies, big deal. Okay, it's no big deal, right? So that's number one. Number two is interesting. I read about, I think this might only be true for America, because I read one of these things. I read that in America, actually, the tap water is of better quality than bottled water. So that you have to, strange, that they have to actually they have to put more care into whatever goes into bottled water, into the tap water, than what they can put into bottled water. So that means you're using up plastic and drinking inferior water, when really in reality, if I really wanted to, all I need is a big cup that I have in my office, and I have a tap, and I go and I fill it up, and it does exactly the same thing as my 12 water bottles I buy from Lidl all the time. And one of those, exactly. And it won't spill on me every time I open them up, because Lidl is, there's something about Lidl, they have to make things really, really cheap. So like they don't, a lot of water bottles, they leave like a little bit of space that when you open them up, it doesn't spill. They're filled to the top, and the plastic's like really cheap, so you have to hold the plastic tight to be able to open them. It squishes, and you open it, and it always goes all over you. That's the first. It's already annoying me just about getting it open, but now, not only that, I'm polluting the earth. I'm having water that's not as good, and I'm getting wet on top of it. I really don't have to have that. I might as well buy myself a cup. So you say, yeah, but if people started buying cups, and they'd make a big fuss about them also if you go to Starbucks, if you go to any of the other places. If you went to Starbucks and brought your own cup, they give you I think they give you a discount. It's cheaper when you bring your own mug, right? 25 pence, right? So you say, so what's the 25 pence? What difference does it make, right? See, if the difference was £1, you watch how people would come with their own cups. For 25p, you're like, yeah. Do I look that cheap? Yeah. But there are people that go to Starbucks like 4 or 5 times a week. I never go to Starbucks because I don't drink coffee. It's not my thing. But I know people that go to Starbucks almost every single day. And they're spending a lot of money on coffee. So if you're buying 5 coffees at Starbucks a day, and you're going to get £1 off every time you're walking with your own cup, and you do that, that's £250 a year. It's a lot of money for just having a cup instead of getting one of those polystyrene cups. There's nothing wrong with that. It's easy, these kind of things. Learning to recycle better. Just instead of chucking things out straight into the bin, look what's on your table before you chuck it. Don't just take the whole thing and throw it out. That's a plastic bottle, that'll go in the blue bin. Those are paper things that can go, all these plates can go in the paper. You have wooden things over there, I'm not sure where the wood is going to go. Which, I'm not sure. Does that go in the brown bin? Those wood, the paper? I'm not sure it's paper. I think it would go in the brown bin with the food, like with the garden waste. I'm not sure if it goes with garden waste, whatever. You know what? I'll let you work that out. Call Barry Council and ask. You got nothing better to do with yourself. Thank you. Wash and reuse, right? Yeah. Waste less food. Even see, the thing is, even if you have a big family and you can't do a lot of these things, but you could waste less food. You tell a family, if you have a big family, 5 kids, 10 kids, 12 kids. If you started wasting less food, especially in a family of 12 kids, I guarantee you'll save a lot of money over the year. You can save 500 to 1,000 pounds on the food waste. That's worth it. It's worth, pounds and pennies. It's a lot of money. Turning off lights. Somebody once said to me, Paul, who works by us in shul, who's the fix-it guy in shul, he said, if you walk past a tap and the tap was running, would you turn it off?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody would turn it off. You walk past a light and the light is burning, do you turn it off? No. Right? What's the difference? One, you see a resource, it's just going down. The water is like flowing, and you're like, oh my goodness, who left on the water? Quickly turn it off with some sugar. Yeah? But you walk past a room where all the lights are on and nobody says to themselves, what a waste. Somebody's wasting the world's resources. Somebody had to burn coal to create this, or they had to do some kind of crazy nuclear stuff to be able to light this house. Why is the light staying on any longer than it has to? So you say, oh, well, what's the big deal? It's only because you don't see the water flowing into that, that you just ignore it. But you shouldn't really ignore it. It should be as important to you as the water that's being wasted down the drain.
Makes you think, like cigarette packets, they put those warning things and
Yeah.
smoking. It'd be interesting to see if they did that Cabbage Patch thing on printed on every bottle, or whether people would actually bother recycling.
I don't know, because I don't think that the people that smoke, I remember at one point or another became like a thing. It was like collect all 10 of them. There were 10 different pictures on the At one point it was like a collector's item. Like I got the one with the teeth missing. I've only had one of those before. Yeah. What?
You're doing that now.
They're doing that now?
Yeah.
Well, that pictures are horrible. I don't know who would want to collect them. There's such horrible pictures. This will make you impotent. Like goodness. Why am I gathering these things? Why am I keeping that at home? Look, this guy has only 2 teeth. The rest of them fell out because he's smoking. Wow, I didn't get that one before. What's the great?
But it has
Literally.
had impacts.
Pardon?
It has stopped people from taking up in the first place.
Has it?
Yeah, the rates are down for people smoking. And
I don't know if the rates are down because of those pictures, though. Is it those pictures that brought the rates down? I think it's everything. We've become a society in general that looks down upon smoking. Maybe not vaping, but smoking very much so. And so therefore, and smokers are shunned and they have their own little corners. Everybody's like, you're doing something that's dangerous. And then people realize. So that's why we don't do it. But those who smoke, I don't think the picture would stop them. Maybe. I don't know.
Why is the Jewish world not up to that with smoking and also Baltashkis and it's not talked
Good
about
question.
except in
No, it is talked about. Well, no. Smoking. The strange thing is, smoke. When I was in yeshiva, there was already a kol kore by all the gedolim that said you shouldn't smoke. And guess what? The problem is that people listen to the things that are convenient, and the ones that are inconvenient, suddenly people stop listening to it.
And they
Yeah.
do it.
MH do it quite a bit. Yeah. And the other thing is, I think the point is that I think the reason people don't do it is because of this all or nothing attitude. Because if you told people that you could do small things that would make a big difference, I think people would do small things to make a big difference. But because people say, I got 10 kids, I'm never going to be eco-friendly, so forget it. So then they don't even try. Whereas if you said to them, you're right, you might not be the most eco-friendly house, and maybe your non-Jewish neighbor is going to be much more eco-friendly than you are. But does that mean that you should be throwing all your water bottles straight into the regular bin instead of to the blue bin? Take your bottle and throw them in the blue bin. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're saving the world for it. Or part of it.
It's not taught from a Torah perspective either.
Pardon?
It's not taught from a Torah perspective. It's not said that this is a mitzvah or not Torah to do it.
Well, no, it seems from this that it would be a mitzvah to do it, and not to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Yeah?
But then some people argue that Hashem said he wouldn't destroy the world, on that.
Hashem said he wouldn't destroy the world. We have the power to destroy the world ourselves. God said, I'm not going to... Hashem says that... Pardon?
That's what people say.
I don't know if that's true. Can I ask you a question? If we wanted to, we have enough bombs and nuclear power that we could destroy this entire planet very easily. 2 or 3 pushes of a button, we could all disappear. So are those people saying that if for whatever reason Russia and Washington pushed those buttons, God would make those bombs just not work because the world couldn't disappear? Maybe a terrible state to be in. I wouldn't have to be stuck with that. But the bottom line is, pardon?
He could do whatever he wants.
I know. The question is, are you telling me that I can do whatever I want and be as dangerous as I want to? Because then God's going to save me. I don't know if that's true. Don't know that that's true. And then the last thing is reusing certain plastic things, as was mentioned before. You can reuse aluminum things. You can reuse certain things. Yeah, you're right. Certain things are only one-off usages. I don't think you can reuse these forks or these plates. I mean, they just don't have the quality. You get better quality plastic plates. Sometimes you can reuse them. You can wash them, use them twice or 3 times. You don't have to throw them out every single time. So you say, well, what's the point then in having them? By the way, washing up also comes with an environmental, the soaps and the suds that are going into the oceans, and in the end of the day, heating up water also is going to, you're putting out CO2, you're putting out gases, etc. It's not 100% eco-friendly. We're still at the point where even other things, even the alternatives, are not necessarily eco-friendly entirely. However, pardon? Oh, we can't go live in caves. So, we can't go live in caves. But the bottom line is, we can still do more than what we are doing. And that, the Torah has a perspective on this and allows us and really urges us to take responsibility. In a small way, in a big way, whichever way you want to do it. I think Joe Stone mentioned to me that, and it was mentioned at our council meeting, they wanted to make the shul an eco-friendly place. I don't know if we're about it. There's a big investment in it, and I'm not, I'm the rabbi, I'm not charging the money. So it would mean investing a lot of money, for every week for a kiddush. It would mean getting all those plates out. Then it would mean getting somebody to wash up all those plates, or getting a big dishwasher that's going to wash up all those plates. It comes with a lot also. When you have 150 people at a kiddush, and everybody has a regular plate, that's a lot of plates. And everybody has a regular cup, that's a lot of cups. That's also going to have, it's going to have an effect. And sometimes we have to say, well, can we as a shul afford to be spending that kind of money week in, week out? How does it compare to the cost of plastic? Or, maybe we get these cheap paper plates. At least those can be recycled, maybe. Don't know. There might be other ways to look at it. I don't know if we could create everywhere to be an eco-friendly place. But there definitely is a good reason and a good source to try as much as we can to be as eco-friendly as we can, to try to safeguard our world as much as we can, and as God said, not to ruin it because you're not getting another one, and to make the most of it. Any questions?
Not so much a question, it's just, I do think that it's not so much about people wanting to be eco-friendly. I think a lot of it's to do with the laziness of our generation.
Yes.
It's like,
it's very
we
true.
just love everything quick and fast. It's not
Absolutely.
so much about, oh, I don't want my tablecloth to get stained. Like, it stains, but it's so nice to just be able to wrap the plastic, shove it all in the plastic, and then just chuck it in the bin, and wow, my house is nice and tidy within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, a lot of it isn't to do with, oh, because I've got 15 kids.
Right.
And then I don't have to stand washing up. It's a lazy thing. It's like, it's
Yeah.
not,
Okay.
I'm going to save myself some money. No, you're not. It's that you're just being lazy. Like,
Okay.
I only remember getting plates when I was a kid, when my mum started, it must have been about 10, and it was the first time she ever got anything disposable. It was like these polystyrene ones, weren't even like the paper ones yet.
Yeah.
They literally used to be the lightest
Scratchy
thing.
noise as well.
Yes, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
you put it hot, it was melt. wouldn't it?
Yeah, oh, it was horrible. So I know exactly the ones you
But
mean.
it makes me laugh because I think, how did we cope before? We were perfectly capable of coping before.
Yeah.
It's
Well, all right.
so
I
hard.
remember
It's only, what, 15
my mother, when
years?
she moved to Vienna, she was like the foreigner because she came from America. And, I was born in Vienna already. And then, she stood up and she said there's no way she's going to be having cloth nappies. But everybody else had cloth nappies. And she spent the extra premium on having, disposable nappies. Nowadays, if you think about it, if you said to anybody, if I said to any of you, you're going to have kids, are you looking forward to having cloth nappies? You must be crazy.
It's very trendy.
You have discussed how they're becoming trendy again. They really air out well, the kids don't get rashes. I don't know. No, nobody uses. I don't know many people that use cloth nappies, but yet, if you look back 30 years ago, everybody used. There was no alternative. You just used them because that's what there was. Yeah, we have become lazy. We are a lazy generation in general. Look, we don't want to go anywhere. I know people that sit, if I want a bottle of milk, you can sit there and go, Amazon now, I want milk. But you live across the road from Sainsbury's, Amazon now anyway. Yeah, I am not crossing the road when Amazon can come to my house in the next 25 minutes. That's who we are. Sadly, but that's who we are.
Also, I think there's a fashion almost nowadays in that, I went out for lunch last week and they had 3 meats. So when I have guests, I'm going to have 4 meats. And
Right.
no one needs 4 meats, 3 sides, and 8 salads.
Never.
That's definitely a London thing.
That's not a London thing. That's not a London thing. I wish it was a London thing.
Yes, the beauty
It's not a no. Yeah.
I think that it's more than just being lazy. I think that the world is moving at a faster pace now.
Yeah.
With technology, everyone's on their phones.
it's
What? 50 years ago, the amount that you got done at work
Yes.
in a week,
Yeah.
your bosses would expect you to do in a day now.
Probably.
Because you can do things
Because you
at a
can do so much
faster
quicker.
pace.
Well, in the old days, you used to
So-
send a letter. It used to take 3 days till it
But
got there, and then
it's-
3 days till you got a response. That was the speed.
It's a bigger rat race now. I think things like when I go around to my 91-year-old grandfather's house, everything's very slow.
Something
Yes,
nice.
and you're kind of like, I've got things.
I'm going to the kitchen.
I've got things to do because our generation are used to. We've got to move faster. I've got to go here. I've got to just sit. They're just half an hour for a cup of tea at 4 o'clock. Steady on. Because that's how they're used to. It's not
Do you know the only thing they're really quick
used to
about?
working.
The only
They're used to
thing
working
people
to
at that
slower
age
pace.
group are really quick about are international phone calls. They've
Right,
never
so
gotten over
that-
that.
but-
Hi, I know you're in Israel. I hope you're having a great time. Bye. You're like, Grandpa, this is free. He's like, no, this costs £3 a minute. I hope you're having a good time.
Which is very true, but they are used to when they were 30, 40 years
That it was a
they were used
fortune.
to working at a slower pace.
I know it's
Because
a
you
fortune
didn't have
for
to work
anyone.
you didn't have to work at a faster pace.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily pick up the phone, you wrote a letter, you waited for a response. You couldn't just press a button and then instantly get a response from someone.
Yeah.
You had to wait a week or two.
Yeah.
So nowadays we are using plastic, we're using all this stuff to quicken up our lives. We make it
true.
quicker.
Yeah. Because I don't have time to stand and wash
time
them.
to do that.
I want to. Who has time to stand?
Time to
and
do that.
Who sews up the rest in their
You haven't got
trousers?
time. There are 900 channels. There are 900 channels that we have to watch.
How would
You
you
didn't have
ever
4,
watch nine? I mean,
no, but this is what I'm saying.
I grew up on two.
These days,
I grew up on
we're
two.
We're going to be quick. So you watch something that was on once a week because you're interested.
That was it?
No, that's always something. So you got to be quick.
Not only that, you have to
Gotta be quick
binge
and
watch
you
things.
can
You go on
hear it.
Netflix, you get the whole show and you binge watch.
Netflix,
12
no-
hours, the whole thing through,
No one
you know?
watches TV now because they're so.
No, it's only on demand. TV's on demand. It's a regular TV is gone. Who wants them to tell you what to watch? I want to tell them what I want to watch.
That's just one thing.
Yeah.
Then you've got your games on your tablets and your PlayStation.
That's
your
the same thing
Xbox,
with
you know.
Spotify. Do you remember you used to get a CD? A CD came out once every who knows how long, and you spent £10 on a CD, and you sat and listened to every song on that CD, especially when it was still a tape.
I mean,
Do you remember when it was still tapes? You had to listen through them because it was hard to fast forward and rewind them.
yeah.
Today with Spotify, it's like my kids are like, no good, no good, no good, no good, no good, no, because we have premium, so they just keep going. No good. Like if you're not premium, at least you get stuck once every 10 songs. But premium, just keep going and going until you find a song that you like, and then no good, no good. That's our generation.
I do think that the problem is that we just need things done. We need things done quicker.
Jewish speed of talking.
You know what, though, I have to say, it's interesting seeing like the UK now starting to ban straws, and now earbuds, I think, is going to be the next thing. It makes me laugh at the picking like what I
The
think are
tiniest
the
things.
smallest things
Yeah.
because they're so scared to even try like ban carry bags in total.
Yeah.
Like, they won't even go there. Like it's like forget
No,
it.
but I don't think
Like,
you're bad about it. I think if
they
they moved it from 5p to a pound, I think you'd see a huge difference.
Huge
You would see a
difference.
huge
will,
difference.
they will make a difference. I'm saying it's interesting that they're picking what I think will be
Small.
It's insignificant.
These-
It's
okay.
like convenience. All that
You
stuff.
start small, you gotta start small.
I
and see
don't know
if
how,
they
I
do.
think they're discussing that because now, small shops, they
Yes.
need to charge for bags. So
They're gonna have to start charging.
They will. I want to see. We'll see how
We'll see what it will change. Yeah, well, when you go to kosher savers and it's 10p a bag, you start thinking. You will. Anyway, right. Okay, guys. One last thing, please, and then we're gonna end both. The plug for everybody who's watching and plug everybody here. Next Sunday, please God, at 5 p.m. at our shul, we're having a Yom Yerushalayim barbecue. It is a community barbecue. It is not only for the young people. That's right to the computer. You should know. It is not only for the young people. This is for the entire community. There'll be programs for kids, but the UJA is also putting on a program for the adults. I think one of the shaliach is going to be speaking. There's going to be good food. We're going to have a good time, etc., and it's not expensive. If anybody wants any further information, I think it's £7 an adult, £5 a child, maximum £25 a family. So, please do join us for that. We'll have a great time. Please join us again for Shir and Shwama if you want to, or it doesn't have to be Shwama, it can be sushi or anything else. If you want to host one of these in your house, be in touch with Mikey and Rivka. We'll get it going. We'll get it done. Thank you so much.
No,
Thank you very much, guys. Very much appreciated.
maybe
See you on
no.
the next one.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.